I built 8 companies across 4 continents, over 500 plus employees all across, making more than 100 million dirhams plus 2 words apart. If I would have had the usuals to be my part where how to do my business as an entrepreneur, I would have been broke. So here's today that nobody will tell you. Today I'm compressing 20 years of my experience into these 9 brutal truths that you may get some information out of it. How did it make sense for me? One size doesn't fit all, but then again, everything that probably you need to know makes a sense towards looking out for a different version. The stereotypes have to be broken, and brutal truths are not going to be goody versions. This is about the facts that I've faced, and this is not all positive. Have a look at that. Brutal list number 1. Ready is a lie poor people tell themselves. When I started my work, my business, there was nothing ready. No product, no proof, no funding. I had to begin and I started. The broke mindset always will have the kind of requirements: no momentum, no plans, no opportunities. All three are achieved with action. And I think action is something that we all need to understand. Till you don't move, you will never know. The worst that can happen, you can fail. But then again, that failure is supposed to be taken as a lesson. And that lesson creates your first chapter, your first footing. Anything that is not moving, for me, that's lifeless. Any action requires quick thinking and readiness to jump in, and then things can happen. You can make your plans whilst you're actually moving ahead with that. Let's talk about brands that we all resonate with or recognize these days. Facebook, Amazon. If we had these kind of requirements for the startup for a Facebook that was ugly like hell, why did it actually just happen? Because it started, but it did not give up. It was curated in a way that it started to get refined and better. Today, Facebook is a part of our life. Amazon, Jeff Bezos might have just been selling books if that was something that he would have thought of. But then again, he started something and he made it better. Opportunities do come when you see what you're doing has got a call to action. Once you are in the game, you will always hit a T point that will tell you go left or go right. When you go left, if it is not right, you can always take a U-turn. But till you are not moving, you would never know what is on the left and what is on the right. So action is the first ingredient to be successful. So here's a pattern. Every big organization, a big idea starts with an incomplete version of it. You start, you begin, you get a feedback, and that's how you actually settle down the market. Till you do not know, till you don't actually put your fishing net out, you would never know if there's fish in it. And if not, then what is missing? What is the thing that probably is lacking that you're not catching the fish? When people are making their plans, there's the real winners who are actually just doing the work and getting market feedback to grow from there. And also, we have to keep in mind that whenever that we are launching a product, a service, whatever, it has to have a market TG for us. We need to look at it that what we are putting has to be scalable. It has to have a kind of a minimal viral potential to be going from a place where you get feedback. And again, that's dependent on the idea. But again, every business has to have at least a starting point and an end. Not an end, but then again, to reach a point, a destination, so that you can move forward from that. So that's the kind of steps that we have to take, but that comes with movement. But here's what a myth or a stereotype is, that you need to probably not start without planning. That is called reckless. Wrong. That's not. And imperfect or a plan that probably is just out in the market gets you a feedback. If I would have gone with theoretical and a push that probably people were doing and I need to just follow that, I would have not gained what I had done with theories. It is a pure practical experience that I've gained through my work, and here I am, sitting over here talking about this brutal truth. And then again, the mantra doesn't change. The earlier you start, the earlier you get into the feedback loop, earlier you'll get into corrections, and earlier you get the market with yourself. The brutal truth is your first version is always going to embarrass you later. How you do things in the beginning is based on what you think that people want versus what people actually want. So that can only be created or have a connect with the audience once you have your product been launched unready. You create that viability where you will then get into raising funds, creating that opportunity for you to better yourself, and then that momentum that will get you partners and team members. That's a very valid lesson. But here's this part where you need courage. Your first delivery would be clunky. You would be embarrassed about how you are deriving and what's the feedback coming. But that also gets you into a feedback loop that gets you into the winner's circle. The market doesn't reward perfect products. It rewards useful products delivered on time. The market doesn't reward perfect product. The market rewards useful solutions delivered timely. Brutal lesson number 2. Stubborn people die rich or broke, but never average. When the market shifted, I did not cling on to my old ways. I changed my methods. It is always going to be obstacles in our lives, in a structure. There could be any reason for that. But winners don't change their destination. They don't change their mission. They change their routes. And that's important because there's a massive difference between destructive stubbornness and constructive stubbornness. Positivity is about, we know that this is what my mission is, this is what I want to do. But if I can't reach it through a straight line, I'll take a detour. I'll take it from a different angle that how I can reach it. But I cannot change the goalpost. If I change the goalpost, then I'm going to be probably somebody who gets diluted, and then I'm not even having my destination where I need to move. I can be flexible, but not flexible to change my mission. Destructive stubbornness is a disaster is about to happen. You know that things are changing. You know that it is about changing our methods as well, routes that we can reach out to. But if we don't, and we are still holding on to our old version, looking at no adaptability, looking at if I'm going to work, this is the way that I know, and this is the way that I'm going to go up, you are on a boat that is going to sink. Let's talk about successful companies like Netflix. If they had DVD by mail sent out, and when it was declining, they could have actually closed down like Blockbuster. But what they did, their mission was to deliver entertainment. And they changed their methods. And today, look at what Netflix is. So mission did not change, but their roots, adaptability towards when it comes down to there's problems, there's obstacles, we should have a mindset, how do we reach to our destination, not change the mission. Its core mission was delivering entertainment to their customers. What they did with streaming is something that is we all need to learn from. And that's for me productive stubbornness. Vis-a-vis, when we compare companies like Kodak, who was premier, who was getting into a zone that belonged to them, but they had the digital cameras, but they did not invest in the filming, and they were stubborn about it. And today, they're not nowhere to be seen. And that's where I see that's not adapting to changes, not looking at obstacles and not having different methods to be adopted. Even at the top, look at Nokia, look at BlackBerry, look at other brands that probably could not make it because they could not change, they could not adapt, and they had the similar thoughts that this is going to work as it was working in the beginning, or at the success point where they were on the top. And that's a disaster recipe. For the past 20 years, I've been trying to see adaptability. Adaptability is a very vague word. It's a very broader perspective. People might not understand what adaptability is. But when I have come across in my stream, in my field of business, I have only got myself into branching out with things I can add to my business. That probably I see there's a gap in the market, that I see that I can actually package it. I can see that the client requirements are growing. As when we talk about pre-COVID, post-COVID, we spoke about technology been taking over. We had, at the first instance, we were the first ones to do a touchless campaign. We were the first ones to look at when post-COVID, when things were not opening up. We were the first event campaigners to bring in events and bring in things to bring retail back. These are things that were adapted. We did not think of how we're going to do it, but then again, we had to take out routes because at the end, we needed customers, we needed people to come out, and that's where probably our approach was very successful. Today, when people are talking about 70% of the jobs being affected with AI, we are starting to adapt it because I don't think AI is going to take over. I think we need to learn AI to actually be a better version, a refined version, and that's the need of the hour. So it's a better, flexible platforms. You can be more productive if the routes are changed. But if I'm rigid, if I'm talking about things the way that I used to do earlier, I would have been a thing of the past. That gives me the power to speak about the brutal truth number 2, that we need to adapt. The mission never changes. I'm a stubborn person, but then again, I'm constructive and productive stubborn. Brutal lesson number 3, your reputation travels faster than your marketing budget. I can't tell you how important this rule is. Let me just repeat it. Your reputation travels faster than your marketing budget. I've always focused from the beginning of my career, reputation has been about being available, understanding that money can be made. And I think everybody knows how to make money. But making reputation is something that probably looks at as a long-term version. You need to be very specific. How do you actually maintain? It is not about what you say about yourself. It's about what your worst enemy cannot deny about you. We talk about getting credibility. We have marketing budgets on our social, on our digital. We go on the SEOs. We get ourselves on the first page. If you think that's getting business, no, that's only getting you as a brand that is out there. Do you go to a doctor while looking at a Google search or getting any feedback from ChatGPT who's on the top? We are talking about a reputational. You ask your friends. Word of mouth is something that matters. It still matters. It's the oldest thing that probably is in a career that is required. Build your reputation. I think word of mouth, people think, has got very limited version that people would be addressing only to a handful of people. You might be surprised because word of mouth goes like fire. I've had things, a very recent example of what I did 3 years ago. It was a beginning, it was a start for a new version for me to get into beach soccer, and Intercontinental Cup was given to me. It was a task. I was being asked by the heads, the chairs, the decision makers from the government as well, is this something that you are capable of doing? And as what I told you about the brutal truth number one, I was not ready, but then again, I made sure that I was ready. What we were discussing was about how do we get that. And that part was tough. And I made sure that everything was covered. I did not make money in this. I lost money. What came next was my reputation. Immediately next year, I got FIFA Beach Soccer World Cup in Dubai. And the year following, what I did, I raised the bar. I got complimented by the rulers. And it was an accolade that I cannot forget because this is something that was covered by the media and broke. For me, this was a personal achievement as well. That in front of breaking the protocol, in front of everybody, I was been acknowledged for that. With that, what did I get? I got the next FIFA Beach Soccer World Cup in Seychelles. This meant the reputation does have that kind of a pitch that I did not want to do it on my own, but then again, my reputation traveled and that's benefited me. And that's a very valuable lesson because I still believe that on personal branding, on your brand's personal branding, we need to look at it. If there are things, and again, there's no straight line, there is no such thing that a plan is going to work 100%. You might be ready 70%, 30% is left for that particular thing to go wrong. Are you ready with a contingency? Are you ready? Are you willing to go that extra mile when you are willing to take that extra effort to get things done properly or in a way that probably you envisioned it? It's not about a commitment. It's a commitment to yourself. Your brand matters, and whatever that you do carries with you. Problems will come, but how you tackle them is important, and that is your bottom line for your reputation as well. Another thing that I have learned in my life, things when they go wrong, we should be the carrier. We should be the person to actually reach out to your client by telling them there's something wrong. Rather than they finding out, it would be something that you are building, that you are knowing what is the problem, you're talking about it, but you solved it. And that has helped immensely for our business. Today, the brand itself is in 4 continents, but we're reaching out to people that we don't even know. We get inquiries based on somebody has done work with us, somebody who might have, and recently we received a pitch. Somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn and they were talking that I have seen your project and they're a multi-level brand over here in real estate. They said, we have seen your work and we want to work with you. There's other agencies as well. But then again, reputation definitely has got that hitting part that you need to care for. With that, you also have commitments. You got a kind of a list of elements to deliver in your services, in your product, in your brand that has offered to your client, even it's for a B2B or a B2C version, but you've got a list. Now, when you talk about that list, that is evident that this is the delivery model that you have to give. Never be bracketed on that. I have got a rule for myself, my team as well. We have been asked to do something for $100. We make sure that we are delivering 150. That goes with the fact that it is a product that we are not looking at delivering as a supplier, but as a partner. We're talking about thinking from a perspective that what a client would expect and giving that extra punch, because if it goes in a success route, if we make our clients the heroes, what they are deservedly be, you are having a client who is not going to give you business just from their end, but then again, they're going to promote you as well. And for me, that's reputation. To back up my version, let's let's talk about Zappos. How do they actually just get themselves valued at a multi-million dollar company based on not outspending, not spending extra for more than their competitors did? They created an over delivery model that outsmarted, that did their competition to probably go for a run, because what they did, they made the customers to be happy with the stories that they got that was worth sharing. And that was a success model because they created a journey, they created a satisfaction to their customers. And for me, the key insight is that reputation scales non-linearly. Early in your career, reputation building is slow, but it compounds. It is with the fact that it is like going uphill. Uphill is about a beginning point. You're on a foothill. Uh, you're a starting point. You want to scale this hill, this mountain. So it is going to be tough for you to get yourself up on the top. But then again, that slowness compounds. Once you reach to the top, then it's all downhill after that. Reputation is exactly like that. So we need to be clear about the fact reputation has got wheels that will take you places which you are not even expecting. That's word of mouth, that's your reputation carries and travels faster than your marketing budget. Brutal lesson number 4. Transactional people stay broke forever. I deeply invested in relationships. These relationships have been a plan that I've worked on. I've invested in my transactions, I've invested in my clients, my partners. Everybody meant that it is not going to be a quick win. Now, a broke mindset always looks in for a quick win. Rich people think of a 10-year plan. Not that every time that you're going to get everything to happen in a day, but then again, that has worked for me with the biggest contract that I've worked with my relationships. It always is about knowing your customer. It's about spending time. The relationship, it's not that different from getting married. It's to do with spending time. It's to do with having that personal touch to it. And you would find the client then stays with you. Losing a client is a crime. Getting anything that probably you would mean, one client means that it can have an effect to get you more clients with their circle of influence, or the people who actually see your product, they're going to ask, who has done this? If you are on the right track, if the delivery model is right, and if you understand your customer, this is what relationships do. It's a very hard lesson as a young entrepreneur when you look at investing in some things, that when you have to pay your bills, when you have to pay your salaries, but then again, if you're investing into something that probably is going to give you benefits maybe after a couple of years, maybe 3 years, you can't afford that. But that's a negative mindset. You can't afford not to invest into your relationships. And that's a lesson that we always forget. And we get into a high. Anything that you get into as a win, quick win, is something that is good. But then again, that can also be looked upon from that it is not structured. It's not having sustainability. Sustainability brings with the bonding, with the relationship that we bring on the table. Let's talk about networking. Networking for a lot of people means going to an event, meeting people, handing over your business cards. Trust me, I've never done that. The fact that probably you would understand is you're trying to oversell. You're trying to actually get everybody that you meet to be converted into a sale. That's a disaster. That's not something that you should create as an impression about yourself. That's a short-term thinking. Look at people who are successful. What do? When they go for any networking, they're not selling anything. They're trying to understand what is happening, trying to gauge knowledge, exchange ideas, understand what can work, what cannot, because it's always good. Knowledge never gets diluted. Knowledge always gets increased when you're sharing it. And having a head that you have got a mindset to learn whilst you are at a position as well is a sign that you are looking out for your relationships, that you want to know what is happening so that you can pass it on to your customers. And that's a firm believer of for the fact that long term is definitely always paying up. Let's do a little bit of a math. One relationship based client is equivalent to 10 transactional clients. What you get, you on a relationship based client, you will get premium prices, you will get a long term version of getting business from them. You will also be referred because you invested in that relationship. But transactional, it will be getting yourself into negotiations, getting yourself to probably cut down on corners, and later disappear. You're not creating anything which is a long term. And that's where you need to Look at it. Every day, if you have to go out and dig a hole to get water, is not something that you would be successful, because maybe there's no water tomorrow. If you already have something that you created a well for yourself, you've got water stored with you, that is your applicable model of your relationships. Let's look at COVID again. Let's look at some of the brands that I do follow and I do learn from them as well. Let's talk about Emirates Airlines. So there was a time everything, the world stopped. There was a time that they were going into a model that Emirates was flying high, and things were based on the fact that they have the latest aircrafts, they've got the facilities and everything else. They did not stop investing into their delivery model. They wanted relationships to be there. They had their loyalty programs that were people looking out for being on that loyalty program, for being a silver, a gold, or a platinum. That became a status symbol as well. But having said that, look at them post COVID as well. There's people that have been hired, their services have increased, and they've refined themselves. Everything that you talk about, uh, I was happy earlier. It used to be about, and if it was about savings, they would have not been here. So they've invested into their service model, and that's where they are looking at relationships. Before COVID, we used to probably get a freshen up bag that you will get as an overnight traveler in business. But then again, now they've started giving pajama sets as well, and things that probably it is not, it's a small thing, but it's creating that it is required for a customer who's traveling to probably get themselves into comfort attire. And I think that's a very good lesson for everybody. They have not stagnated. They've thought of what else can we do to add to our services. They're investing. And that's, for me, relationships. And relationships do matter. Relationships matter personally and professionally. Let me give you another simplified version. When you are sowing seeds for a plant to get to see bearing fruits, that is something that you can avail of as well. It's like relationship. Initial investments would mean that tomorrow what you've done is going to be a fruit for you. This is relationship management, not transactional. You don't get to pluck fruits from day one. And if anybody's got a mindset that everything happens so quick, that they are on a dopamine high, and I think it is a relevant, brutal truth that we should learn. Long-term relationships is the bottom line for your success and your brand. Brutal lesson number 5, work for equity in your future self, not present comfort. From the beginning of my career, money was not what I was chasing. It was value. My initial projects barely paid me. I had to do things that would have been looked upon from a perspective that I'm foolish. But that was my long-term vision. I was trying to create my assets. I was trying to gain knowledge. I was also trying to create my own reputation as well. That worked for me. A very simple example, there was a brand that was floated over here as a new entry point with RTA and inter-Emirate buses flying from Dubai to Sharjah. Sharjah was a place where everybody from the middle class was staying and working in Dubai. When we spoke about things, how do we have this as an inter-Emirates bus become an out-of-home experience for branding and for people to advertise on? It was a very difficult task because any brand wanted to see the version that we are not going to Sharjah. Sharjah is not my target audience. I'm talking about brands that probably are also consumer brands. It was a very difficult situation for when we started initially, and the contract was ending and it was going negative for the simple reason that we could not find any suitable brand to be on that buses and to work with us on that. At a point, we reached out to Adidas, and it was something that they chose not to work. We went to Nike, and Nike was somebody who was looking at that the money, negotiations, and everything else. I changed the game. I went back to Adidas and I told them, you don't have to pay anything for the media. You only pay for the branding. That was chisels. That was only 5% of the cost that would have got them on. 3 months of free version of your advertising that's going out. Now, they did not understand the fact that I was trying to explain, if you are putting your brand out over there, you're also getting yourself more eyeballs and more time. Sharjah traffic meant that the buses are going to be stationed for a longer time. They're going to be people, and it's not only about buses, people flying from cars, people coming and going. You would be seen, and visibly this is going to be a good benchmark, because that's how you position yourself of how many eyeballs, what time, and that is where probably your bottom line hits. It started with something that I did not make any money on. And it started with the fact 3 months later, Nike wanted to work with us because they thought that this was a great platform for them to launch their new product. At that point, Adidas was not paying anything. And I went back to Adidas and we spoke about that this is something that your competitor wants to take. So your 3 months are getting over. Based on that, what I asked them as initially to be paying for 3 months, they paid me double. And they extended that for 3 years. And that's how we look at it. The fact that probably it is about creating that interaction, creating that knowledge, understanding that all projects don't pay. It takes time, but then again, when you get the grip of the market, then you are in a position to bank upon with your credibility, bank upon your knowledge, bank upon your networking. That's worked for me. I'm not being any different. Look at any athletes. Look at anybody from the cricket fraternity. These young players, when they're building up their careers, they go out for next to nothing when they take any fee for working or playing with something that is a known brand, a known team. IPL is a classic example. So anybody would give an arm and a leg to play for Mumbai Indians or Chennai Super Kings. The fact is, if they're paid or not paid is a question. So people and players, if they're smart enough, they're building up their career, they would like to have that on their resume. They would like to have that experience. And that would mean that they become a star at a later stage. So there's no quick fix. There's no quick learnings or quick earnings on that. But they are thinking smart. Initially, we need to have our expectations in check. We need to be open towards looking at it, money or your future equity. And that's hard hitting. Athletes that have worked well, cricketers who have done well, have been coming out from being a local cricketer to become international brands and playing for India or playing for other countries as well. For me, this is how it should work. Equity is always going to be superior than money. Long term, that should be. Now, here's a question for you. If you're applying for a job initially in your career, you get an option of having an established company that is giving out $100,000 to you, and there's a startup in an emerging market that's giving you $60,000. What will you choose? I'm sure it is going to be 100,000. That probably people might think, most of you, because $60,000 is lesser than 100,000, and that's more with an established company and with a startup. It's a risk. But then again, look at the overall equity that you're trying to create with an established company. You will get very limited version of learning, skills, upskilling yourself, because there's a pattern, there's a system that is there in place. So you have to work in that system. Why do you always see that an established company, when you work, your annual growths are 2%, 5%, 10%. But in anything that is a startup, you learn more, your networking is bigger, and your version of what you can expand is based with no limitation, with a bracket that probably is open. The fact that probably after 2 years, 3 years, you're still going to be probably $100,000 becomes 120 maybe. But that $60,000 might give you an opportunity for you to jump on to be a starting entrepreneur for yourself. And that's where experiences versus money, networking versus money, limitation is going to always put you into a bracket. With your productivity, you need to have yourself to explore. And the exploration for me would have come with a startup in an emerging market. Let me draw a line over here. So working for less for equity should not be considered or compared to working for free. Working for less means that you are working for learning, upskilling, networking for your future self. But working for no money means no compensation, no equity. Don't confuse that. There's a differentiation. You have not traded for getting nothing out of it. You're traded for something that you're getting out of it, but then again, not put yourself out for free. So do not confuse yourself on that. I've got a little formula, and that's a gauge that I always work when there's an opportunity that knocks on my door. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I've got number 1, money, number 2, networking, number 3, learning. If it is a 20 plus, that's an opportunity worth looking at. My normal positioning has always been 3 for money, always on the lower side, 8 for networking, and 9 for learning. Things that probably will not make any sense, because what you're looking at is not quick gains. You're looking at an equity that you're creating. And that's where you need to look at what you're investing is not about getting money, but then again, your networking. Your networking is going to get you more later on. Your learning is going to upskill you. So you are out with the competition, which I don't consider there's any competition. You compete with yourself. And for you to upskill yourself, you need to be open towards that. But this strategy has got time limit. If in your early 20s and early 30s, you're trying to gain knowledge, creating equity has to be a part. And late 30s and beyond has to be about encashing or monetizing that equity. If you're at 45 and you're still thinking that there's not enough exposure or you're chasing exposure, you're on the wrong end of your career. The goal is to generate enough skills, networking, and reputation that later on you can reap benefits out of it. And that's the plan on premium prices that you can derive based on your knowledge, based on your reputation. Brutal lesson number 6: scared money never makes money. It's about having the risk factor included and embedded into your genes. That's what makes it work. The riskiest proposition could be being playing safe when the game is changing every day. There's so many people trying to do the same things what you are trying to do as well. In this world, fast paced, you need to look at it. The strategy has to be having that risk factor. If your money is not been invested and not timely as well, you're not getting those benefits. And I have been taking those risks regularly in my career. Adaptability towards the fact that I see an opportunity, I need to seize that opportunity. That risk taking and that positioning for myself to take a decision has made me get some really high dividends. Some might have failed, but then again, not everything fails. A recession that came across, and when we talk about any adversity brings an opportunity, it's not a lie, it's not a myth. I was at a position that I started my career and we were hitting our first recession in 2008. When people were folding up, people thought of it that it is a time that we need to scale down, we need to get ourselves to be safe. I changed my version. I took up 10 warehouses at that point. I hired more than 50 people. We made a team of 100 people at that point when people were thinking of firing people. Why? The prices that I got for those warehouses was 1/3 of what we were getting earlier. The prices that, or the salaries that people were expecting at that point scaled down because there was no jobs. And employment was a big issue. Getting a job was the first thing that they wanted to have a kind of a security for themselves. And I hired those people at that time. We had ourselves to be looked upon that we are stupid, but that risk paid me dividends. When the market started to come back, 2008 and 2009, the biggest thing that we were working on was looking at the big brands. I was a part of the biggest mall opening, Dubai Mall. We were a part where the teams were working and we had the teams. People were striving to get people, I had the people. People were striving to have an infrastructure, I had the infrastructure, I was ready. At that point, it made so much sense for me to look at the kind of risk that I had taken had paid dividends. Scared money is never going to make you money. For my experiences, I've always looked upon from recessions to COVID, 3 recessions and 1 COVID down. I've learned opportunities are there. We need to have a look out for them. There has to be a risk factor involved in that. Some may work for you, some may not. But anything that is safe is never going to work. So you need to act. You need to be having that a little bit of a risk factor, that risky bone in you as an entrepreneur. Anything that people do and they follow what people are doing, you will only add. But if you do things which people are not doing, you will multiply. For me, that's my mantra. And I love multiplication. Let's look at the companies that dominated 20 years ago versus now. Netflix killed Blockbuster. We had Nokia that was killed by digital smartphones. We had newspapers that got killed by digital media. Taxi services got replaced by Uber because everybody that failed, that was winning 20 years ago, played it safe. And let's not be confused about taking risks. Taking risks mindless, not being reckless is something that I mean when you're talking about calculations. You're talking about an assumption. You're talking about a plan. Not that there's anything that probably you want to do, you want to just spend your money or you want to invest it because you do not know. Mediocrity is about getting things that if somebody's done that, I should do this as well. Have your own version, have your own calculations. That will work wonders for you. If you know that you're doing something which is going to lead you to a shorter route, there's no shortcuts, though. If a shorter route that probably gets you, that's a smart version for you. If there's things people do not think and they are blinded towards that, that's an opportunity that you should grab because at the end, if it is required, services, products, they will not go out of fashion. It's the way that probably you deal with them and how you present themselves. To the customer, the the route that you take, that's where you need to be calculated. Let's have a line drawn. A comfortable zone that your mind gets into with you to get regular earnings and everything else is a mindset of being employed. An entrepreneur does not think that way. It thinks about that risk taking ability has to be a part of it. That's where you need to invest to see what you get out of it. Sometimes you're going to lose, sometimes you're going to win. But that's the mantra. We need to be looking at money that has been kept, money that's not been used, decisions that's not been taken is a safe approach. And that would not get you anywhere. You're always going to be a follower. A leader is somebody who gets into a track where everybody is following. We carve our own routes. That's calculation. If I can reach it through that place, and if this is the same destination that I'm going for, this is ace. We need to be alive to that situation. I have had multiple examples to give, but then again, this is something that is a mindset. First of all, get your mind trained on that one. You've heard this before. The only constant thing is change. When the world is changing, how can you be staying put the way that you are? You need to stay as per how the market is evolving. But then again, look at your own version. Do not speak what everybody speaks. Have your own version of adaptability, your own version of expanding, but make sure that you're calculative. You're looking at how do you grow. Brutal lesson number 7. Say yes first, build the plane while flying it. You may be surprised, but it's hilarious. My team at times thinks I am maybe not somebody who thinks straight. I take projects, not initially, but now as well. I take projects where I have the plan, which is there in some gray area, but I know that I can reach there. But then again, there's no concrete plan. Things make themselves to arrive and to reach to a point when you know what you have to reach as a destination. The refined version for everything can be created. Your learning on a practical playground is better than anything else. It's like the swimming lessons. You can be theoretical, or you've been thrown in the water and you start swimming. You have the first thing that you do is the law of survival. You try to survive and you get better after that. And that's also a mindset that's scared. If you're jumping into something and you're already having boundaries around you, I cannot do this. This is something that I might not be able to understand, is something that I've challenged myself. It's always got me into a point where I get myself upskilled during a course of a project. The first run that I did over here, I was a part of the team from Dubai Marathon. I did not know anything about running. I did not know anything about running events. I did not know how crowd management went. I did not know how things would shape up. It was an everyday concentrated effort when this was bestowed on us. We were looking at how do we actually now look at what are the areas that we have to cover. When the project comes, I have one rule that I follow. I put everybody on my team to sit on a table and let's talk about everything that they can think of possibly that can go wrong. When you have everybody to put out in a piece of paper and things that they're putting it out, that this might go wrong, that might go wrong, 10 people sitting on that table, you will then have everything covered. Your contingency is in front of you. You have got a perfect plan because now nothing can fail. And you learn from that. For me, every challenge has given me an elevation. Everything that I've worked with, the fact maybe it is eccentric, people might think it's crazy as well that you haven't done it. It's a recipe of disaster. It's a recipe towards hitting a dead end when you do not know how this is going to happen. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you have a vague idea. You've got a clearer version when you start working on it. And that's important. It's not about I have never flew an airplane and I'm telling I'm going to fly an airplane. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I know how to fly it. I have possibly had my sessions, but then again, I don't know how to fly for a longer distance. And that's where I learn because I know basic knowledge is there. And my version of getting myself to looking at the destination, I would be able to do that. And let me give you an unknown fact. You know, our brain is a supercomputer. It is always ready to solve problems. But when it has not been used and it is not under pressure, it is in an energy saving mode. But when it is under pressure, it is unstoppable. And that's how I feel as well. When there is certain thing that is there in front of you, you're trying to solve it, your mind works towards solving it. That's positive. Look at an example from SpaceX. So if Elon Musk would have actually had planned for 10 years to build rockets, he would have been somewhere else. But what he did, he bought books, but then again, he committed to launch rockets. With that, what did he do? He had a basic idea, but then again, he hired smarter people than him, hired people from that industry, and made sure that it happened. And today, it's there. The is in front of us. He built rockets. And that's where he started flying the airplane, and he was still building it. Major brands like LinkedIn, Airbnb, and Dropbox had the similar traits. Their teams, their decision makers said yes first and then built it. They did not have the knowledge beforehand. So let's look at the 3 question formula that I normally work on. Number 1, I ask myself, can I figure this out if my reputation is at stake? 2, can I find people who are smart enough to take care of this? 3, can I break bigger problems into smaller chunks as complex problems becomes easier when you're solving them into smaller proportions? If I figure that out, it's easier for me to have a grip that is not something a loose end. A grip means that at least I have one side of it, the next end of that thread I'm going to find out. And that's progressive, and that's for me, it's working towards a solution while you are in it. But decisions require emotional intelligence as well. If you're taking a decision that you need to take a risk factor, if you are at an X that you are working on, your growth pattern, and you can grow by X2, it makes sense to jump into it. But if you are at 1X and you're looking at a gap and you're committing to a 10X, there's a gap that cannot be bridged and you do not know how to do this as well, that's stupid and reckless. So there's a differentiation between your decision making when you're taking risks or when you're getting into a point where you can solve it, you can make it happen with your knowledge, with the things that probably, as my 3 questions that I asked, if we can do that, that's a yes to go ahead with. But don't be stupid about it by committing things that you cannot actually deliver. Understand, when we go for our training, when we're going to the gym, you commit to yourself that I'm going to do 100 bench presses. But slowly, gradually, you grow on that. The 100 becomes 120, 120 becomes 150, then becomes 200. You don't stay stagnated on 100. And that's growth. That exactly is how we work with our factor towards growth when we take risks and we look at things that if we are capable enough, but not that from 100, I can straight away go to 300. That's stupid. Expectations needs to be in check for that. Neurologically as well, your brain functions as a problem solver. When it is in a no function mode, you are going to be relaxed. But when it comes down to a problem that you need to probably deliver something that you're committed to, it starts to look out for solutions. You're becoming more creative. You're looking out for solutions. You're looking out for help. You tap into people, things that could make this work. So that's an emergency. And again, it is not any different from a survival mode. When you get yourself into a survival mode, what do? You try to hook on to, latch on to anything that comes your way. And that gets you into your life zone. This is a growth zone. This is about decisions that you take when you see that you can make it work, but your brain helps you. That's your best friend. A problem-solving brain under pressure works. Brutal lesson number 8. Your biggest failure is your biggest unfair advantage. And I'll tell you how. At the beginning of my career, there's things that I got myself into, projects that were very hard, difficult for me to learn as well, but they gave me a lot of learning. Initial stages of my career, I had gone through phases where I had committed to certain things, and certain failures became my biggest lessons that I failed at a time that I was beginning. But then again, that gave me a lifelong lesson, and that has still helped me with a tag that we carry with ourselves. I got a project for a Falcon Championship in the middle of the desert. We were creating ourselves to have a competition that is run for Emiratis, Bedoons over here, which is a Falcon race that happens over here. And I was been asked to work with creating that area to be fit ready for a Falcon Championship. We had to come up with our marquees, we had to come up with our structures and everything else. At the beginning of that, when we had started to put this out, before the show started, before the game was up, we were 2 days ahead, 3 days ahead of it. And the storm came. That storm made sure most of the things flew away. Glasses broke, things that probably were meant to be probably operational did not have that kind of method, that kind of backing for an outdoor version that we were trying to create. That lesson about safety and health and safety versions that probably I learned from that made sure that we had our teams to be capable. our teams to be upskilled, our teams to be having their certificates based on any outdoor structure that we create or anything that we come out with, things which requires health and safety as a primary thing. It's not about a local version, it's about international standards to be maintained as well. That made sure that 20 years down, we are having no accidents. That tag is still with us, that we are safe when we're talking about anything. If you may not understand, I'll give you an example. Last year, we built a stadium that fitted 3,900 people. It was built based on scaffolds. It was based on the cabins that was been brought, all modular. And had the storm come last year as well, it was 12th of February when the storm came. 15th of February, we had to have the matches begin for the World Cup, and that is FIFA. But nothing moved, nothing happened, and we were able to do this. In this storm, we were capable to make sure that we were having our product being there because we were knowledgeable enough how to do this. My teams that were skilled enough, my decision making was based on the fact that safety is the first and the premier thing that we have to look at. And we again changed that. We worked on the FIFA Beach Soccer World Cup with a world record that we created that stadium in 25 days. And trust you me not, but then again, this year we broke our own record by one day. We made the stadium similar to that in Seychelles, harsher weather conditions, more disturbing towards the part where health and safety is important. We delivered the stadium in 24 days. And that goes out for me having a brilliant team looking at safety first. And that was a lesson that maybe has given me an unfair advantage. And things that probably when it is time bound as well, we don't jump into it. We look at it holistically. Wherever it is a safety issue, we have ourselves covered on that because of our experiences. And that for me has become a very good important aspect for our reputation, our business that grows on that. And people are willing to pay premiums based on that too as well, because we know that is something that is important. If something that is coming cheap might have their question marks, but when it comes down to health and safety, people don't compromise on that. And I've used that for my advantage. Why not? Your failures are your medals, your certificates that you need to probably look at. And that's where the strategy globally, what people normally think, mediocrity, is about the fact that you should not talk about how you failed. You should not probably have that exercise. But these are your certificates that you have done what your competitors are not doing. Your competition is not even thinking about it. You got a first-hand experience on your failures and made sure that that failures is your advantage right now. Also, don't have a top line to this. Do not have something that is, okay, I failed and this is something that I'm going to make. Always document it. Create processes around it so that you are bettering, you're refining it. Every time there's a new change, there's a new version that comes out, you adapt to it. And that's where you become not as a local player, but an international standards that you're maintaining. That's where brands like FIFA have worked with me, because it has worked for us that we have made sure that we are adapting to those standards. And we made sure that is happening to us because we are documented, we have the teams, there's a training process that goes into, and we implement that regularly, religiously. Brutal lesson number 9. People don't quit jobs, they quit managers who treat them as numbers. 90% of the time, people don't quit their jobs because they've not been paid well. It's because of the managers. It's about the atmosphere. It's the culture that they get into. They are not appreciated. They are looking at a thing that they are just a number, or things that probably is looked upon from a perspective, the human side is missing. I have always worked with my team to be a premier stepping version for us to probably jump into it together. It's a boss version versus a leader version. I've always tried to be a leader. My team members that I started from my first employee, who actually did not leave the job, he retired from here after servicing us for 18 odd years. And that says for itself. We had all our team members being a part of it, because employee as a word is not been supposedly to be used in our organization. We talk about partners. We talk about complementing the fact that anybody who brings on anything on the table, including the T-boy, has to be given that kind of a platform that they breathe. They can look at it. It is a respect that we get. It's a mutual version that we all respect each other. If a T-boy is only serving tea, he's as equal as a member who's making a competition to a sales team member who's bringing millions of dirhams of sales on the table, because he is there serving tea when people are working, and he is a part where probably he becomes an integral part of it. In a game of cricket, if you are chasing a score of 100, 99 made by 9 batsmen, and that last tailender makes that one run, is an equal contributor because he was a part of that success of chasing 100 runs. It is important that we understand the theory. People don't stay for money alone. People stay when it comes down to having an atmosphere that is conducive, that has got a progressive approach. They can feel a sense of belonging. They get themselves into a point where they can see that they can grow here, they can stay here, they can breathe here. It's an important aspect, and businesses, any entrepreneur cannot build on their own. You need your team. If you've got musical chairs with your team, you will always have people that were there and are not there anymore. Take pride when people are retiring from your organization. Take pride. Make sure that they're complimented on their 5 years, they're complimented on 10 years, but also complimented on the variant on their salaries. Looking at it, that growth pattern. What do? You give them positions, you give them an atmosphere, you give them a growth pattern. You will have people that stay loyal, and people make companies, people make progress, people make the success formula. Pillars of a company is always made by mediocres. You will have people who will come and who will go. These are star performers. They will stay for a while and then they will move on. But then again, your people who are staying back are your loyal people. That are the pillars that probably you need to retain them. And for me, it is important that I give this part. This is a brutal truth that people don't quit, and people are important. People don't quit because of they want to change their job. They quit because of their managers treating them as numbers. That makes me come to my 9 brutal truths that I had put together 20 years of my experience. And having said that, I'm not taking a lifetime achievement award. I'm still work in progress. I'm looking at this might be supportive. Knowledge is being shared. It's about getting more people to know how I did it or what I am doing at the moment. This might benefit you. This might probably relate to you. Maybe one point, maybe all of them. I would love to know more. And if you want me to expand it on any of those versions, having more examples, having things been explained in a better version, I would love to know your feedback on that. In your comments, when I read them, I'm going to have being considered that the next one has got all your answers. On that note, I want you to be brutally honest. Look at the 9 brutal truths and try to see if it makes sense in your life. On that note, thank you.